Halo 2 was Bungie at the absolute peak of their powers. Every map was so memorable, so good. Everything that Halo 2 did that we now take for granted was brand new, and it was huge.
One of the most eagerly awaited video games finally goes on sale.
Preparing to rewrite retail history.
A video game is expected to have bigger first-day revenues than any movie has ever had an opening day at the box office.
Video gamers across the country are anxiously awaiting the midnight release of a game called Halo 2.
45 minutes and counting for Halo 2 to go on sale.
The line right now is probably about 100 yards long.
It is the most anticipated game in entertainment history.
Halo 2 sold 2.4 million units in 24 hours.
Hey y'all, my name is Roger. I'm a big fan of Halo, the video game series. I also really enjoy video editing, and I wanted to work on a project that demonstrated my skills. When the pandemic hit, I started working on a documentary about my favorite video game, Halo 2. I spliced together multiple audio interviews of Max Hoberman talking about his work on Halo 2. Hoberman was the lead multiplayer designer for Halo 2 and Halo 3. He was interviewed on IGN for an episode of Podcast Unlocked, hosted by game journalist and Halo expert Ryan McCaffrey. A couple years later, Hoberman was interviewed again for Halo 2 Artifacts, a limited podcast series hosted by former Halo Pro player and developer Andy Dudynsky. So I mixed Hoberman's audio interviews with old behind-the-scenes Bungie documentaries, gameplay videos, screenshots, trailers, and I ended up creating a pretty in-depth look at the development history behind Halo 2. I wanted to illustrate how Halo 2 revolutionized online console video games with its groundbreaking matchmaking system, an innovative new way to connect gamers of varying skill levels from all over the world to play Halo 2's arena-style multiplayer. Having earned a degree in game design, I also wanted to dive into the design process behind Halo 2's iconic multiplayer levels. But before we get into all that, here's a brief history for those who don't know about the origins of Halo and Bungie. Bungie is a game studio founded by Alex Seropian and Jason Jones in the early 1990s, originally based in Chicago, Illinois. The initial Bungie team was small and consisted mostly of college guys who just wanted to make fun computer games. They did just that and found moderate success as one of the few game developers programming for Macintosh computers. From 1994 to 1996, Bungie released a trilogy of first-person shooters known as the Marathon series. The games were praised for their innovative gameplay mechanics and sci-fi story. The Marathon series did well commercially, with each game selling over 100,000 units. From 1997 to 1998, Bungie released 2 real-time strategy games known as the Myth series. The games were developed for Macintosh and Windows computers and were received well by critics and fans alike. However, a bug in Myth 2's code was wiping out people's computer hard drives. This prompted the Bungie team to recall all copies of the game so the problem could be properly addressed. The expensive recall decision put Bungie in serious financial trouble. The company's future became uncertain. In the year 2000, Bungie was acquired by tech giant Microsoft to produce a game for their upcoming Xbox video game console. The Bungie team moved to Redmond, Washington, and began working on what would become Halo Combat Evolved, released in November 2001 as a launch title for Microsoft's new Xbox platform. The game's sci-fi story is set hundreds of years into the future. The main characters are a super soldier known as the Master Chief, his AI companion Cortana, and a group of stranded space marines, fighting against a collection of highly advanced religious aliens, known as the Covenant. The two factions battle each other for control of a mysterious ancient alien ring world known as Halo. The now iconic music, beautiful art style, epic storyline, and addictive gameplay proved to be very popular. Halo became a huge success, selling over 6 million copies by 2005 and cementing the Xbox platform as a serious contender against Sony's PlayStation 2 and Nintendo's GameCube. After the success of Halo, Bungie got to work on a sequel. The team was really ambitious and wanted to outdo themselves on every level for the highly anticipated sequel. They ramped up the storyline, expanding on the religious culture of the Covenant. They gave the game's enemies way more depth and made them almost sympathetic. Halo's story is basically the Crusades in space. These brainwashed aliens have been misled by the religious leaders into committing genocide against humanity, all in the name of a god, in the name of a righteous cause. They hired famous actors to play characters in the game, like Michelle Rodriguez, Ron Perlman, Keith David, and David Cross, to name a few. Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore, the guys who wrote and composed the iconic Halo soundtrack, brought on awesome musical acts, like Nile Rodgers of Chic, alternative rock bands Incubus, Breaking Benjamin, Hoobastank, and guitar legend Steve Vai to collaborate on the soundtrack for Halo 2. And of course, the multiplayer was elevated by online innovations like the matchmaking system, which virtually connected gamers together through Xbox Live. In the early days of the internet, online video games were only played on PCs. Players had to manually search servers to join their friends' games. There wasn't a system in place to rate a player's skill level either, so a match could play out really unevenly due to player skill gap. Cell phones weren't commonplace, so communication was also limited. In September 1999, major game developer Sega released the first online-capable video game console, the Dreamcast. While the Dreamcast did not perform well in the market against its competitors, PS2 and GameCube, the push toward online console gaming was carried further by Microsoft with their online-enabled Xbox Live service. Halo 2 helped popularize online console gaming. Soon, other online multiplayer games like Call of Duty, Gears of War, and Battlefield would adopt the same matchmaking system that we see in games today. However, in preparation for E3 2003, the biggest gaming convention in the video game industry, the Bungie team ended up spending way too much time working on a gameplay demo with these amazing looking graphics that, secretly, under the hood, couldn't actually run on Xbox hardware. After the convention, the Bungie team spent a significant amount of time reworking the graphics engine so that all the levels could work properly. Not only that, but the story went through multiple rewrites and changes. So Bungie lost a lot of development time, creating a demo and a graphics engine that couldn't be used. Microsoft was initially aiming to release Halo 2 around holiday 2003, but because of how far the team had fallen behind, Microsoft delayed the release of the game to holiday 2004, which left the Bungie team with about a year to complete the game. Halo 2 was a mess at that point. The team went into overdrive, working crazy hours and sleeping at the office just to meet the game's deadline. Despite the grueling development hurdles, Bungie made it to the finish line and released Halo 2 in November 2004. Halo had become a cultural phenomenon. The sequel broke sales records. Despite some technical issues and an abrupt ending to the game's storyline, Halo 2 was widely loved by critics and fans, including myself. So with all that backstory out of the way, let's hear from former Bungie employee Max Hoberman about the development of Halo 2's multiplayer.
Max Hoberman is here.
Hey, Ryan.
Good to see you, Max.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I actually just really enjoy talking to you every time I get the chance. You were the multiplayer lead designer on Halo 2 and even Halo 3. But yeah, I mean, to me, I've said this many times in the past, I think Halo 2 was Bungie at the absolute peak of their powers. You were a key member of the team that built the entire matchmaking party system infrastructure that was a revolution at the time. It was a massive leap forward over the what had been the norm, and the norm was You join a game, invite all your friends, they come in, you play together, the game ends, and then everybody's scattered to the wind again. You didn't stay together.
Right.
Everything that Halo 2 did that we now take for granted was brand new, and it was huge.
When I think about Halo 2, I think of Bungie in some ways at its low point. We struggled so much on the campaign side. Everything got kind of blown up and reassembled to a new story. It's not like it was like, oh crap, we got to cut these levels and we'll just end it right here. It changed radically from what was envisioned along the way. I'm super proud of what we did, considering all the roadblocks and speed bumps along the way, although sadly many of them were sort of our own making. And then the multiplayer side of things, I think, is kind of the opposite. That's really kind of a high point in a lot of ways. When we're working on a Halo map, you have to design a map that plays well to the Halo sandbox. Halo maps, we design them and we make them to be played thousands of times. And our goal is that the map is fun, the map is fair, the map is balanced. When you're playing that map for the 500th time, you can discover something new. It takes an incredible amount of playtesting. You have to consider this huge set of possibilities, and the only way that you can make sense of that madness and deal with that sort of infinite set of possibilities is to have your priorities straight. Every map has a primary game mode and a secondary game mode, and one of the two always has to be Team Slayer. Because Team Slayer is just so popular, right? Every single map has to be fun for Team Slayer. Whenever you make a decision, there's pros and cons, and you make a decision for one game, sometimes it's bad for another game mode, but having that compass with those priorities, it helps you make those tough decisions, because you cannot design for everything. You'll go insane. We strive for every map being great for a minimum of 2 different game modes. And then, of course, we also try really hard to make sure that it doesn't suck, at least for the other game modes, and we do our best. Thematically, it's just such a rich universe that you can go at a picnic site in one map, if you're on like Beaver Creek or something, to this frosty thing with Lockout, this Forerunner facility on the side of a cliff, and again, is incredibly disparate environments that can exist but still in this cohesive fashion in one universe. So you end up with these maps that are very distinct, both in terms of the layout and the design, but also in terms of their aesthetics.
Since we do have Max Hoberman with us, I'd love to take kind of a step back and look at Halo 2 and why we're here celebrating the 10-year anniversary. I mean, Halo 2 was such a pivotal game, I think, for everyone on stage. For me, I can say there's no way I'd be up here and working on Halo if it wasn't for Halo 2 and my career. And I mean, year after year, it was the most popular game on Xbox Live. And for many people, it was also an introduction to online multiplayer, not just on console, but I think all up. Max, can you tell us a bit about how you got involved specifically in Halo 2 development?
Yeah, sure. I was actually at Bungie before Microsoft acquisition days. And after we got acquired, I ended up starting up the community team at Bungie. So I was responsible for managing the community for the Myth games online for BungieNet. And then my group was also handling the user interface design. So we did the user interface design for Halo 1. And all those years, I kept telling them that I want to do multiplayer design and I really want to be a designer. What we actually shipped for multiplayer for Halo 1 was not what we were originally imagining for Halo.
Say what?
It was really impressive how crazy popular it was and how fun it was in LAN parties. And honestly, it kind of caught us by surprise a little bit.
When we started Halo 2, I wasn't part of the dev team. I was still running the community team. They had a design spec for this Warfare game mode, which was really what they had wanted to do before sort of Halo 1 Arena style, back when we were in Chicago.
With this larger, big, asymmetric, totally objective-based 32-player game, which was called Warfare. It was radically different than Halo 1, or certainly than what we shipped.
And when I realized that their plan was to only ship that, and to not ship the sort of Halo 1 multiplayer that everyone knew and loved and had taken off in the LAN party setting, I just thought that was a huge mistake, and I made a lot of noise about it.
A lot of what happened in Halo 1 was kind of this last minute, not a lot of time, not a lot of people to put on it. Let's just throw something together quick. It worked out so well for a lot of happy accidents, but also because the fundamental controls and sandbox, the weapons and vehicles and damage model and everything were sound for Halo 1, really strong. Halo 1 was so much fun, even if some of it was accidental and it wasn't what we originally envisioned. So many opportunities to improve it. We should take that experience and bring it to everyone online. That was essentially what I got tasked with.
Alex and Jason, this is when Seropian was still there, the two co-founders of Bungie, came to me and finally said, hey, we sort of agree with you that it'd be a mistake to not do the small-scale multiplayer. And we'd like to do it, and we'd like you to lead it.
Why don't you take care of that? We'll call that the party game. That'll be for LAN parties, and then we'll go do this big, warfare thing separately.
I'd never been really a developer before, so Halo 2 was my first foray into game development, but I actually had a team within a team, and then I picked up one single part artist, part level designer, which was Chris Carney. So I dove in kind of head first, and the plan was the core dev team was actually going to implement warfare, but I would also implement the small scale. I remember 6 months later after I started, zero work had been done on warfare. At some point, somebody made the decision that warfare was not going to happen. But I remember Jason Jones coming to me and telling me that he wanted me to basically be in charge of all of the multiplayer for Halo 2. And I think I knew enough about what the struggles they were having on the campaign that I realized that was probably a good idea. Someone decided it was also made sense to focus and integrate my team with the rest of the team, so we all moved over into sit with the rest of the team right in the middle of everything. I've heard people say that the multiplayer must have been where Bungie put all their eggs, their energy, their effort, but simply was not the case from a manpower standpoint. We were maybe 10% of the manpower on all of Halo 2.
People forget that Xbox Live was so primitive at the time. We were really inventing things from the ground up. So just something as simple as having a friends list accessible in the game, that didn't exist. To check out a friends list, you had to actually exit out of the game back then. So it really started from the ground up, designing in the friends list. How do we take this great LAN party experience and how do we take it online? You guys may have heard the term of the virtual couch, and that was kind of our shorthand for this LAN party experience. But yeah, it was tough. It was incredibly difficult to convey the vision for what this was going to be because it was so different. You can see up on the screen some of the features that we introduced in Halo 2. People are used to a game server, just go find a server and then hope your friends can get on that server with you. And we were really kind of inverting that and flipping it on its head. And even within Bungie, it was incredibly contentious. There was a camp that said, no way in hell I'm not going to have a game server, and I want to choose exactly what map I'm going to play on. This matchmaking idea is not going to work, to put it politely. Yeah, when I was working on the online features, I was, to a certain extent, I was in a vacuum. I didn't really have a lot of direction. I did have a lot of community background, so I had some experience, and I had some ideas, things I wanted to do, like parties was my own kind of crazy concoction. And then matchmaking was the one place where I actually felt like I got some creative direction from Jason Jones, actually, one of the co-founders of Bungie. What Jason said to me is, all right, once you're in matchmaking, you need to make it easier to stay in than to get out. Make it easier to keep playing than to leave. And that's why at the end of the match-made game, for instance, you stay in that group and another game automatically starts up. That cycle repeats itself automatically. My mission on Halo 2 was really, a lot of fun, the fun of Halo multiplayer, but also really broad accessibility. You push a button, you get a choice, a list of like 7 playlists or hoppers or whatever you call them, and pick one and go, and everything just happens really automatically. So Bungie was always very much not about any individuals. It was about us as a team. Some of the stuff in Halo 2 we were doing with as groundbreaking stuff was very, very risky. Nobody thought we could do any of the stuff that we did online. Everything we did was so new. If you don't take any risks, then you're never going to come out ahead. You're never going to win. I like to take calculated risks very deliberately and then do everything in my power to tilt the odds in my favor.